all around the world this morning, Centers for Spiritual Living are focusing on this idea of love. I want to clarify that we're talking about love with a capital L. Not like loser, but love, right? So you may have been around here long enough to know that we often say that love is another word that we can use as a name for God. God is love. Love is God. And since God is all there is, love must be all there is, too. But, if you're like most people and you look around the world that we live in, you're going to see a lot of things that don't look like love, right? Mass shootings, hate crimes, all-out war, division, violence. I can make a long list. And when we see those things, it can be very, very challenging to see God, to see love in all of that. So I'm going to talk about that because throughout this month, we're going to be inviting you to lean into love and to express love out loud. That's the theme for the month. But guess where it starts? It starts with self-love. My lesson title today is Self-Love is the Bomb. I really should say self-love is the bomb diggity, right? So I looked it up. I didn't even know what bomb diggity meant. I kind of knew what it meant. So what it means is it's slang for something that's very cool, excellent, or impressive. So today I want you to consider the reality that self-love is the bomb diggity. It's way cool, it's excellent, and it's impressive, and it is also impactful. Why? Because people who love themselves have the capacity to love others. If you can't love yourself, how can you love anybody else? People who love themselves deeply simply are not those involved in those things I just listed. They don't align themselves with the darkness that we find so painful in the world. Love is what makes the difference. See, I knew from a really young age, and I bet you can relate, I knew from a very young age that I wanted nothing to do with hating, isolating, or excluding other people. I was that kid who befriended the classmate who was isolated. I remember in the third grade, I think her name was Barbara, and all the kids were calling her barbed wire. And it just pierced my heart. I wanted nothing to do with that. And I was the kid who shared her lunch, and I cried about the Vietnam War, and I defied any rule of exclusion. If there was a rule of exclusion, I'm like, no, I'm going to reach across that barrier. Maybe you can relate to that. So finding spirituality and realizing that love is what it was all about, I knew I had found my people. I had found my people. Because early on, I read this in the Science of Mind textbook. Ernest Holmes writes, ultimately, we shall see that the universe rests on the shoulder of love. God is love, and that all the errors of man, humans, are the result of ignorance of his own true nature. An evolved soul judges no one, condemns no one, but realizes that all are on the road of experience, seeking the same goal, and that each must ultimately find his home in heaven. The road of experience. Man, that road goes through a lot of places, doesn't it? There are tons of human experiences that teach us how to be loving. And some of those experiences that teach us actually show us what love is not. Isn't that the way we learn a lot of things? In order for us to understand a concept, we often have to have an experience of the opposite of that concept. So I knew I wanted to be an evolved soul, judging and condemning no one from young. But the self-love part, that did not come very easy for me. We sing that song, I love myself so much, that I can love you so much. Come on, sing it with me. That you can love you so much, that you can start loving me. Keep going. I love myself so much, that I can love you so much, that you can love you so much, that you can start loving me. That song. Think about that song. It starts with loving myself so much. And, I'm sorry, you're going to sing that all day. I'm sorry. I've always found it somehow easier to love people other than myself. But that is not how it works. We've spent the last 3 months focused on self-love. I know you thought we were focused on magic. But we were really focused on shifting our identity to ourselves as a soul, as the top spot in self-consideration. See, oftentimes, I think it's hard for us to love ourselves in a big way when we're constantly focused on our human self. You can do it, but for the most part, that takes quite a bit of effort. It takes practice to shift from this human focus to a soulful, spiritual focus. See, when I'm considering my physical body, I asked in Sacred Cup, I said the teaser for the lesson is think about the ways you find it hard to love yourself. Think about them. See if I cover them here. When I consider my physical body, my magic suit, my real identity, it took me many years to figure out how to love myself. Because since I was focused on the physical, I had to use physical measuring to determine my acceptability and lovability. And by those measures, I was always too something. I was too tall, I was a little too chubby, I was too something, right? And it was easy to hate myself for not being able to change my physical magic suit enough to be lovable by the world's standards. Society was constantly showing me how my body was not lovable. And for a very long time, I believed them. Maybe you can relate to that. But I also tried, okay, look, set my body aside. Let's consider my true identity, my personality, okay? That took me a while to figure out, too, how to love it. Because no matter what personality test I took, I found a little bit more understanding about my tendencies, but I kept seeing my personality traits as problems instead of strengths. And I learned how to use my personality effectively, but I still didn't love myself. And over time, I also learned that my personality traits were kind of fluid. Like, I always thought I was an extrovert. Now I'm kind of steering towards introversion, right? So nothing was solid. My personality was too fluid to be my truest identity. And all the measuring tools I found were wildly different. And they valued one trait over another, right? And in the end, it was hard to love my personality. Maybe you can relate to that. I was always too something, right? So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll consider my heart. Maybe I can love my heart, my emotional self. Whew. This took me a while to understand and love, too, because I am an intensely emotional person. Go figure. And I had to learn how to modulate my emotions and show up at the right time and the right intensity, right? But I intuitively knew my heart, my emotions, they weren't my real identity either. And then another thing that I had a hard time loving was the totality of my life experiences. The road of experiences that Ernest Holmes referenced. Because see, what happened on my road of life experiences, I had some very, very painful things happen. Things happened that filled me with shame and doubt about the worthiness of my life. Some of my choices just simply didn't work out the way I expected them to. And I felt other people like blaming and judging me. I'm gay, for Christ's sake, so that puts me in a category that is really easy to hate, right? Very okay to hate. And being surrounded by such high levels of disapproval made self-love of my life path hard to master. Can you relate to the ways that I was challenged to love myself, right? So maybe you struggle with your body, your personality, your emotions, your life experiences, and it's hard to love yourself. But somewhere along the way, I heard a lesson like this. And I was so tired of hating and judging myself and things about my life, I decided to give self-love a try, and it truly was the bomb diggity, right? Because you see, once I found spirituality, I started the process of shifting my self-definition away from my human aspects and more toward my spiritual aspects or my soul. And that took practice, self-love practice. And I want to encourage you to love yourself. And I'm trying to love myself out loud. I'm trying to show you what practice looks like. Gloria Watkins, better known by her pen name Bell Hooks, wrote a book called All About Love, and this is what she said. Whether we are engaged in a process of self-love or of loving others, we must move beyond the realm of feeling to actualize love, make it real. That is why it is useful to see love as a practice. Self-love as a practice. To me, it means I have to practice seeing myself as a soul. As a soul I understand that I'm connected to God at all times. As a soul, the energy of love is my true nature. As a soul, I'm actually a channel for that love of God to flow through me. As a soul, I know that my body, my personality, my life experiences, my emotions, all that stuff, those are just things my soul uses to express on the human plane. So if I can keep my identity firmly planted in the soul place, that takes practice, but when I can do that, I can block out the physical, social, political, emotional, experiential world pulling me toward those things as my identity. Spirit keeps me in my soul. So what does self-love practice look like? It's going to look different for each of you, I promise. But the first practice I will share helps all the others stay in place. My first practice is to identify with my soul every single morning. Figure out your way to connect your identity to your soul every day. You know, some people open their day with a prayer or a meditation to kind of wake up their identity as a soul. Sometimes they light a candle to symbolize that connection with spirit. There are many ways to practice a morning ritual. And one suggestion I have is to listen to Karen Drucker's song, Morning Prayer, as your wake-up alarm. For a long time, this was my wake-up alarm. And here's what, did I put the lyrics? I did. Whew, okay. This is what it says. It says, I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. Now imagine Karen Drucker's little lovely voice singing that. I will surrender to my greatest, highest good. I will release any fear that blocks my way. For every step I take is taken in pure love. And the other verse is pure faith. Taken in pure love. And I'm stronger every moment, every day. My mind is willing and my heart is open wide. I trust my instincts and let spirit be my guide. I vow to live a life that is real and pure and free as I continue walking in the mystery. And that song is so ethereal, it's so beautiful, but it centers you truly. And I haven't found a better song to anchor in my decision to live as my soul every day. As a soul, I am love, and I love myself and others. So begin your day some way in reminding yourself you're a soul. My second practice is actually in one of her lyrics. I trust my instincts and let spirit be my guide. When I love myself, I listen to myself. When you love yourself, you listen to yourself. You don't doubt yourself, right? I listen to myself because I know that as a soul, spirit truly is my guide. See, here's the deal. My soul or my intuition, never going to steer me wrong, ever. It always guides me towards the kindest thing, the most compassionate step, the most generous action. That's what my intuition does. And that path leads towards greater peace and joy and wholeness and love in every good thing. If ego is my guide, ego can go down that road of experience and into all kinds of competition and anxiety and fearful places. In these places, I find self-love harder. And when my ego is guiding my choices and I choose something kind of unloving or unkind toward myself or others, what does my soul do? It starts nudging me. It's trying to get my attention. I'll feel remorseful about unkind things I said. I'll feel that inner nudge to repair a relationship, to apologize, to forgive, to take a higher path. You can always check your decision making to know if you're in your ego or your soul. Because if you're moving towards love and oneness, you're in your soul. If you're pushing others away or needing to win or be right, you're identifying as some aspect of your human self. So following my intuition and my connection to spirit is my second self-love practice. And my third self-love practice is authenticity. In other words, just be me. See, my human self just wants to be liked. It really does. My human self strives to be acceptable and fit in and be normal. My human self is trying to substitute self-love with love from somebody else. In any situation, isn't it true? We can all quickly scan everything and judge quickly if we're fitting in or not. We hate the parts of ourselves that make us, stand out or different or go, in a unique way. That's one approach that human self can take. But the other approach the ego can take is kind of the opposite. That's the stance of, I'm never going to fit in, so I'm going to rebel, I'm going to be different, I'm going to be weird, I'm not going to fit in, I'm going to rebel. So neither extreme is helpful to self-love, because authentic expression rises out of a depth of self-acceptance and self-love. See, your soul doesn't care. Your soul doesn't care if it fits in. It was born to stand out. Our souls do not need to fit into the patterns of social control. When we tune into our own rhythms, our own inner knowing, we can free ourselves from those systems that limit our gender expression, sexual expression, or social grouping of any kind. Inherited expectations from our families. Those are obsolete to our soul. They don't care. We're simply free to be and embrace whoever we are. Because everything's between you and God anyway, right? And my final self-love practice is to suspend judgment and conditionality. There are no supposed to be rules. Everything just is as it is. And this practice removes the idea that I will love myself when X, Y, or Z happens, or I will love someone else when they A, B, or C, right? There's no hesitation, and I practice unconditional love to self and others. Nothing needs to change for me to love myself or another. But I warn you, practice and self-love is the bomb. Meaning, if you start to radically love yourself, life as you know it may just explode into a million pieces. Here are some things that might be different. Number one, if you start loving yourself, what might change is who you spend your time with, okay? Because self-love will direct you towards people who have your best interests in mind and who support your highest self. You might look around and find faces who are holding just a loving presence for you, laughing with you, encouraging you, because gone are those people who discourage you or shame you. Another thing that might become different is how you view the world. All the things that you considered hard stuff out there may just become things that you're curious about, but no longer judge or need to change in order for you to be happy. People's behavior becomes far less important in your daily assessment of how things are going for you. You may just begin to witness the world without all that stuff derailing you. And third, one thing that'll change is how you take care of yourself. When self-love blows up your life, suddenly you care deeply about your mental health, your physical body, your sleep. You start putting yourself first, and you stop trying to please everyone else. You're no longer hustling for other people's approval. So practice self-love in whatever way you can. I suggested my practices, waking up my soul every day, following my intuition, being authentic and stopping the judging of everybody else and myself. But self-love can look like a bajillion other things. Kathy was sharing it's art for her. She's going to start loving herself as art. Keith's going to have new clothes. He was sharing that this morning. And self-love can look like anything. Dance, watching videos, anything that's uplifting to you. But living a spiritual life requires a conscious understanding that spirit or love is showing itself as all of us. When we listen to our intuition and allow it to guide us, we live in the flow of love. The world needs you to love yourself. You need you to love yourself. Self-love really is the bomb diggity. I love myself so much that I can love you so much, and now it's your part to love you so much. And so it is.
And so it is. Wow.